Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Labels, Empathetic Teaching Practices for Neuroinclusion in the Classroom. Next slide, please. So we're both going to introduce ourselves. I'll start. I'm Amanda Larson. I am the Affordable Learning Instructional Consultant at The Ohio State University.
And I'm Hannah Primo. I'm the instructional designer for all of university libraries.
So we want to be upfront that we are neurospicy. And so we have some presenter needs. We may stim. I already have my little Neato block out. Read from our notes. We might have poor recollection, or we might need you to repeat questions and need a little bit of time to process information. Next, please. We have some learning outcomes. We hope that you will develop a deeper understanding of how universal design for learning supports neurodiverse learners. We hope that you will discover the benefits of UDL and empathetic teaching practices for neurodiverse learners. And we also hope that you'll identify techniques that you'll be able to incorporate into your own teaching that will support neurodiverse learners. A brief agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about what is neurodiversity. We're going to talk about why you should care about it. Then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into both universal design for learning and empathetic pedagogy. And then we will bring that all together and talk about teaching strategies. And then we'll talk about learning technologies. And then in the wrap up, we'll have time for questions. So the first thing we're going to do is a little Mentimeter activity together. So if you could join us in the Mentimeter at menti.com, you can enter the code 4857-4419. Or you can scan the QR code and it will, yes, slides are in our link tree. You can use the QR code to join via a second device. Thank you folks who are thumbs upping to let me know that you are in the slides. I'm going to go ahead and steal the sharing. Actually, I'm going to request.
I can also just stop sharing if that's easier.
Maybe.
Doing it now. There we
All
go.
right, there we go. So I need this one. Okay, you should see instructions again. I'm going to give folks just a little bit longer to get in the Mentimeter. Once you're inside, if you could thumbs up to let me know you're there, that's very helpful for letting me know when I should move ahead. Okay, that's about half. I'm going to go ahead and move to the activity. Please keep joining if you'd like to. So in the honor of scaffolding, we're going to scaffold Mentimeter, and I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite springtime thing? Is it all the rain we've been having here in Ohio? We have had so much rain. It's cherry blossom season. There are lots of baby animals. Some folks are going hiking. Some people have started gardening. Or are you like me and you're trying to avoid the outdoors because it is prime allergy season? Getting a good spread across all of these. Lots of people are enjoying baby animals and gardening at this time of year. That's fantastic. Thanks so much for doing that activity. And now we're going to swap back into the slides and we'll come back to Mentimeter in a little bit for an activity. Take it away, Hannah, with the slides.
I'm doing my best. Ooh, it doesn't let me share sound. It was a moment ago. Well, we'll encounter that problem when we get there, I think.
Next slide, please.
Oh, right.
So we're going to talk now about what is neurodiverse. So there are lots of things that fall under the umbrella of neurodifference. Some of the main ones that you'll hear talked about are autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. And we will talk about those primarily in our presentation, but there's also a long list of other things that count. So dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dyscalculia, anxiety, OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, epilepsy, Tourette syndrome, Arlen syndrome, bipolar, Down syndrome, dyslexia, sensory processing disorder, auditory or visual processing disorder. And then you can also have a combination of more than one of those. For example, I identify as having both autism and ADHD. Next slide, please. So neurodiversity was coined in 1998 by Judy Singer, and it moves away from the deficit model that previously existed, where folks believed that mental health disorders like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, etc., faced stigmatism and pathologization. I'm struggling with that word today, and instead uses a model of difference. So instead of it being pathologized, it is now everybody has sort of the same brain, they're just different. Next slide, please. And so we'll be talking today about the difference between, we're going to be talking about neurodiverse throughout this presentation rather than neurodivergent, because our discussion caters around sort of societal change in teaching practices in academia for a large group of people versus the individual experience of someone who is neurodivergent. So for example, I would refer to myself as neurodivergent, but we're going to be talking about folks as neurodiverse. Next slide, please. So also there is the term neurospicy. So we like to think of this as like a spice rack, and put together collectively, we consider those spices. Individually, they're mustard seeds, coriander, juniper, poultry seasoning, cayenne. We think of neurodiversity as centered on societal and institutional instances of difference, and we think of neurodivergent as the individual experience and expression of that difference. Next slide, please. So neurospicy is also a term that people use to identify with. Some people like it, some people don't. But for the most part, it's seen as a reclamation and reframing of stereotypes around neurodiverse people. It's less stigmatized and is often used playfully. It often makes a lighthearted descriptor to introduce the topic. So being neurodiverse does not correlate with low intelligence, and many people with neurodifferences are actually highly intelligent. Next slide, please. So we're going to do just a small activity, and all you need is your listening ears.
And you're going to tell me if those listening ears work,
Hopefully
Amanda.
the sound works.
Because it was giving me grief the second share.
No sound.
Oh, we tested this several times over. Okay, I'm going to do a quick stop share and reshare. Just because sound is important, guys. At least in this moment. Nope, all those sound options are grayed out, Amanda. I may need you to pick up on the sound sharing because my computer has decided I can't do that currently.
Let me see if it will let me do it. That's the wrong button. Okay, and then let me share my screen. I want this one.
Thank you for picking that up.
And it's also grayed out for me, the ability to share sound.
Oh. Okay, that's interesting. It did it appropriately the first time I shared. I will do this then, which should allow me to just share my audio. And that's
working.
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
It's your birthday.
Dumb ways to die.
Whopper, Junior, double, triple, Whopper. 121 guns.
So this is what it can be like inside the head of somebody who has ADHD. That is a particularly like a dopamine sound. And then
ADHD, and this is what my brain sounds like. What do I have to do right now? What show was I watching last night again? It was A Summer I Turned Pretty. I really need to get stuff done right now.
Focus, like you literally need to just like sit down and
I gotta move
focus
my
real
arm to
quick.
the dryer. Okay, no, we can do this. We can do it. Wait, did I leave the oven on? Oh, come on.
Can we be done for
5
today?
tears.
Wait, really quick, can you just
in the
Google?
bath.
And that is what was called an ADHD simulator, and that is what it can often sound like inside the head of somebody who has ADHD. And Hannah does not hear music ones, but and here's more of the second one, the simulator, and I hear both of those things sometimes at the same time, or individually. So it could be a spectrum of different ways. We just wanted you to get an idea of what it's like to sort of be in the processing space of somebody who has a neurodifference. Next slide, please. So people who have neurodiversity often have common support needs. So we divided these into a couple different categories. The first one is belonging. Neurodiverse people feel the difference strongly and often report feeling like aliens or excluded. I've seen a cool, cute meme that were like vampires who need to be explicitly invited in order to participate. That resonated with me. They need clear communication. So some people are very literal thinkers and take communications at their face value. Choice can be a thing. Some people have a strong avoidance for anything their brain considers a demand. They need to emotionally regulate. So they could struggle with emotional regulation because their brains aren't aligned with their body and their parasympathetic nervous system. They could struggle with executive function. So that's also self-regulation skills that allow us to plan, focus our attention, remember things, juggle multiple tasks. And then also sensory regulation. So just like they need to emotionally regulate, some people also struggle with regulating their body in relation to sensory endpoints. So like that could be bright lights, it could be noises, it could be smells. I see some people saying that they're feeling very called out. I also feel very called out when I'm in presentations like this, but it's nice to not be alone. Next slide, please. So how do we accommodate for those needs? For belonging, intentional inclusion. So being outright invited to something is really helpful. Clear communication. So communication that is not only clear but concise, includes all of the relevant information as well as the why. The why is really important. Choice. So having options to provide people with so that gives them the ability to choose to do a thing. For emotional regulation, STIMI, which is short for self-stimulation, often repetitive actions that help self-regulate and bring the body and brain back into connection. So I mentioned at the beginning that I have my little Nido cube and I'm squeezing it. That's a form of stimming. Hold on to this thought though for the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. For executive function, using apps to help break down tasks, task managers, lo-fi ADHD music, focus apps, Pomodoro techniques are all ways that can help with executive function. And then sensory regulation. So wearing ear protection. So loops are a type of ear, what are they called? Hannah, fill in. What are they called?
They're like an earplug, but they allow you
Earplug.
to have a greater focus on perhaps just the sound around you of voices rather than children screaming or background noise of a coffee shop that might be the most distracting.
Thank you. Noise canceling headsets, wearing eye protection. So I have some like pink colored lenses that help with light sensitivity and also limiting stimuli. Next slide, please. So stimming can be a lot of things. The one that I have shared so far is a tactile form of stimming. So rubbing textures, chewing items, it could be teeth grinding, squeezing items, rolling items, spinning items, popping items, knitting, crocheting, embroidering, things to keep your hands busy. Growing up, I was a hair twirler all of my life as a little girl. Auditory, so putting sounds to your ears, repeating preferred sounds. Visual, looking at lights out of the side of your eyes, or really closely examining items. Olfactory, so smelling items that may have a unique or pleasant smell. Vestibular, so that could be like jumping, rocking, spinning, pacing, head banging, swaying. And then proprioceptive is seeking pressure or compression. So that's why we've seen the onslaught of weighted blankets in our discourse. So you might enjoy the feel of a weighted object or squishmallows. It can also be getting back in touch with your body by being horizontal, laying down and taking a minute. So now we're going to do a little activity. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And we're going to talk about it with this quote in mind. Wait, people can actually see things in their heads, not just imagining an idea. So I'm going to go ahead. If you'll stop sharing, I will reshare my screen and we will do an activity together in Mentimeter. So this was really fun for us as we were working on this together. Can you imagine an apple in your mind? If so, what does that look like? So for clarity, I am the very end of that scale. It is no mental image. It's a 404 error. I cannot imagine an apple. Like I know what an apple looks like, but I don't see it or visualize it inside my head. And then Hannah's the other end of the scale.
Complete other end of the scale. I can see that shiny apple in my head. It's beautiful. And when we sat down and had a chat, and I went, oh, when I am trying to explain something to you that is visually based, I need to use different words. And it was an aha moment between the way that we collaborate.
Or make me a quick video.
Yes.
Showing me how to do the thing. We have lots of people here who can see them as perfection, as real as if they saw an apple in person. We have some who fall into the second category where it's realistic and reasonably vivid. And that category is growing as we speak. We have 10 folks who think it's moderately realistic. Then we have dim and vague with 7. And then in my category at the moment, there are 15 folks who are like, what do you mean you can see things in your brain? That seems like not real. Thank you so much for taking part in that activity and sharing that with us. And now Hannah's going to talk about why we should care about it.
Yes, I am. And I think we're good to go. So, why should you care? You already care in some capacity. You're here. That's half of it. But we're going to give you some numbers to back up maybe why the other people in your life should care if you're bringing this back to colleagues. And we want to start with some basic stats. So, theoretically speaking, over a period of about several years, about 20,000 students with an autism diagnosis may actually start their education at universities. And if we look at the stats from 2019 and 2020, 14% of public school students aged 3 to 21 receive special education services, with neurodevelopmental conditions being the largest category of those qualifying disabilities, according to the National Center of Education Statistics. So we have given our university as an example for the ways that you can apply these sort of statistics onto your own institution. For the Ohio State University, approximately 7,700 students out of the 66,000 in the 2024-2025 year reported as a disability. This is a 13% increase from last year, and this mirrors national averages. And 4 out of those students, 75% of those students registered as having a mental health diagnosis. And if we know that statistically, only 1/3 of students with a disability actually informed their college, and we account for that 2/3 that didn't report, our institution, Ohio State, has approximately 15,000 students with an unreported disability. So that's like additional 23% of our students that haven't told anyone that they need a little something else, be it just the ability to stim or more time to process. And so it's something to keep in mind. Not everyone's going to tell you what they need. Amanda, I almost told you to go to the next slide. I'm in charge of that. So I want to end that little like, why should you care note on this beautiful little snippet that we pulled from the internet. Undiagnosed neurodivergence is like being handed a video game that has been set to hard mode, but having people tell you over and over again, it's uneasy. Why do you keep on dying? And while students may be diagnosed, it's just learning the game is on hard mode for the diagnosis. It doesn't make it easier. It just lets you strategize differently. Which brings us into UDL and empathetic pedagogy. And this is basically the piece of the puzzle that I take with me into every learning experience that I'm helping build. Everyone is welcome is drastically different from we built this with you in mind. People don't want to go where they're merely tolerated. They want to go where they are included, intentionally included. And our goal is hopefully that you can take away some of these ideas to intentionally include a larger chunk of your student base or your professional development base, because it's not just our students, as we all know. So Universal Design for Learning, UDL, is a pedagogical strategy that supports the destigmatization. Remember, that's what we've been talking about, the destigmatization of mental health to the extent that it accomplishes greater accessibility without requiring students to self-identify. Remember, a bunch of students have not reported they have needs. A bunch of students probably haven't even been diagnosed. They can't report. So why should we be trying to force them to do so in order to actually be able to learn in a capacity? UDL encompasses 3 pieces of this puzzle. It is multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. And these principles lean on flexibility. It's flexibility in how learners get to interact with that learning process, have their own autonomy in that learning process, and finally, that flexibility in the methods that information is actually shared with them from their instructor. And we're going to dive straight into some recommendations that we have for how to approach this. When we're talking about multiple means of engagement, we're talking about not forcing learners to raise hands as the only way to participate. Allow multiple means of communications. Maybe for learners with anxiety or brain fog, use digital and anonymous means to respond and practice new skills, not putting students on the spot, but still giving them the space to try something new. Tools like Padlet and Mentimeter, which you've already tried Mentimeter, Padlet's coming up next, will actually be really useful in this capacity. At the same time, we're going back to that learner autonomy. Choosing topics that they want to work through their session can be really important. Special interests can be the key to helping autistic students succeed academically. So for autistic folks, they may have a special interest that is an intense and sustained focus on a specific topic. And research tells us that them learning about their special interests is a source of joy and satisfaction, and actually gives them and us an invaluable opportunity to pair up and make sure that they're learning these skills that they need in a way that is really meaningful. And it can help them succeed academically, which I think is all of our purpose here. If we carry on the multiple means of representation, we want to talk about using clear and concise language. So providing alternatives or avoiding metaphor and sarcasm. It's not just jargon, it's those everyday sayings that maybe possibly due to autism is a very literal sort of world, and you may lose someone very quickly. We encourage providing simple and expanded task instructions. So maybe it's multiple formats. You're telling someone verbally at the same time while making them textually available to someone. You share examples of what the expected final outcome is supposed to look like. Or in some cases, you can utilize the built-in captioning provided by most presentation software, even if you're not presenting in a digital format. And so this means maybe turning on your presentation mode. PowerPoint has this feature where you can turn on captions, and you can just be having a normal class period where you have captions on in the background for students to read as well as see and hear. So what does this look like in practice? I've bounced too many slides on my own personal notes. Here we go. In multiple means of action and expression, we're also talking about utilizing each other's strengths to do in-class activities. Remember, there's one brain with many versions, and supporting the fact that there are many versions of that brain means encouraging each other to focus on their strengths. Oh, you're very good at X? Well, I'm good at Y. Let's pair up together and work on this. Rather than maybe the thought of the smart kid being forced to work with someone who's struggling, it's we all have our strengths. Let's work on those together. And we firmly encourage to allow people to have their cameras off in virtual. During the pandemic, there was concerns regarding being on camera that were disproportionately experienced by students of color, low income, and students with disabilities. And the act of being perceived, that in of itself can have negative connotations to a neurodiverse student. And it may also include performative work, such as masking, to be in a space that feels very different than their everyday appearance. And that is what's taking their processing power rather than learning. When we're talking about credit-bearing is when we're teaching, we talk about making assignment outlines consistent through the course. Make sure that there are clear learning outcomes in student-forward language, that there are assignment overviews, that there are detailed and simple instructions. And finally, we really support rubrics. If they are done correctly, they're going to guide a student to exactly what is the essential outcome that we're intending to for an assignment. And we also, again, examples. We want to show what is wanted. So we supply that in multiple ways. It provides a neurodivergent learner with another method to understand expectations that doesn't involve parsing text if we give them an example of that final outcome. And perhaps someone with dyslexia is trying to do something on the fly. If they can see it, it makes it a little easier than just trying to parse through text. And this also means being really transparent. This is part of having rubrics. This is part of having detailed and simple instructions. And in the example we have is agreeing to a class contract at the beginning of a course of study, reducing hidden curriculum barriers for neurodivergent students. Everyone knows what we're doing here. We're trying to be as clear as possible why we're all here today. And we encourage using your learning management system and your support for creating templates that consistently look like how your work is embedded into a digital classroom. For our institution, that exists. There are templates where we can just take it and everything looks the same, but you can also create one for your own institution for whatever your learning management system is. Something that is cross-library, cross-departmental. Consistency can provide one less barrier for those with executive function. They know what they're looking for, they know where to find it every single time. Or maybe designing with anxiety in mind is actually designing with transparency in mind. We're removing ambiguity, we're ensuring materials are available in advance, and we're responding empathetically to requests for clarification, as misunderstandings will most certainly be a shared responsibility. Students aren't trying to be annoying. It's both of our jobs to figure this out. So that brings us to an activity. And because screen sharing is being a little funny, you'll see my screen for a moment, and then I'm going to actually pop us off to audio only. Because it's time for Quad Smash. What is Quad Smash? Well, we are going to play you an audio of 4 songs. They're all overlaid on top of each other. We want you to open your ears and see what songs you can identify, and we'll be playing about the first 10 seconds. And then we're going to peel one song away and play the first 10 seconds again, and do that again until there's just one song standing. If you want, in the chat, you can take those guesses, and we will reveal what those are in a moment. And so bear with me as I remember what I did earlier. There we go. Computer audio, please. And, okay, 3, 2, 1. All right. I would also do terrible with this because I can't remember things worth the life of me. And so I'm right there with all y'all, but my partner loves this sort of thing, which inspired this because I can see so many responses right now. We've got a little bit of everything and a lot of people going, it's just noise. It's noise. And that's me. I got 1 on the first try. Okay. I see a lot of great ones. So let's go to the next one with them peeled away to see if some of you who are struggling can hear a little bit more. Yep, that was the first 10 seconds. And all of a sudden, Billy Idol just kind of showed up, right? It's amazing what peeling 1 away did. So we're peeling 1 more away to leave us with 2. All right, and last but not least, I think you all got this one already. Awesome. Thank you for bearing with me as I shared in a slight unorthodox way. And ding, 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 Viviana, I believe you've got them all. White Wedding, Everlong, Tub Thumping, and Buddy Holiday. I am
And
so delighted. Yes.
there were people who exactly got what we wanted out of this by saying that it was just noise, that it was overwhelming, that it was overstimulating. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about scaffolding, and I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah.
Thank you, Amanda, because that's 110% what we wanted. For some of you, you're spot on, you got it. But you also might be a more of audiophile, and you know these things. And for scaffolding, when we apply it to things like educational, what it means is to break down a task into meaningful, smaller chunks. And that's kind of what we did here for you guys. We peeled the songs away one by one, and had we given you some more background, like maybe started you off with some music knowledge and given you a bit more knowledge to start with, you would have succeeded better, but I think y'all did pretty good. We want students also to have tasks broken down into smaller chunks. We want to allow students to have collaborative spaces to explore new skills before putting them into practice. This is a safe space for all you guys to guess. There was no judgment on getting it right or wrong. It wasn't failure. It was just testing out what you were hearing and learning from other people. And if we were trying to start easy, what we would have done was gone in the opposite direction, starting with one and slowly adding one in. We did this harder. And so we want to think about if we're giving someone a giant task, the more stuff you pull away from it, the easier it'll be to do. And so instead of doing that giant research project and making students do all those bits at the end of the semester, or even just telling students, go find a resource, that's a lot actually. How do you navigate to the library? How do you go into our databases? How do I do an appropriate search? How do I filter appropriately? Taking those and scaffolding those pieces in one at a time actually can build you up to a greater success. So maybe by the end you heard all those 4 songs, you would have gotten them instantly, right off the bat, rather than going, what do I have to do? That's a lot of noise. So modeling how to get through getting stuck in these sort of ways, trying to remember what it was like to be a novice doing some of these skills is also part of this. So it can be done in large scale, small scale, over an entire course, in a single session. It's something that it just takes a little bit of intention. And it focuses on a strengths mindset. We're setting learners up to succeed or fail successfully. AKA they tried it, they learned something from it, and now they can apply it to the big thing that really matters. And so in instances in the classroom, it can look like brainstorming sessions that help narrow down topics. Everyone's working together on that. How do we create a search statement then? How do we add intentional space for students to repeat these steps and keep on trying them out? But we are practicing what we preach, and we're giving you a moment for a break. So let's go back and do the thing, and we're putting on a 2-minute timer for y'all. And I want you guys to sit back. We're going to have a reflection on the screen, but we want you guys to chill for a second. Thank you for taking that puppy break with us. So we asked you to think of a time for in your scholarly pursuits that you could have used more empathy, if you received it or not, and how that affected the outcome of your endeavors. And that actually segues us into an empathetic pedagogy. And we love this quote from Grove O'Grady: "A classroom full of human beings with their own stories, lives, loves, and losses requires teachers to work not only with their heads, but Aeneas reflected with their hearts as well." And we want to embody that in the work that we push onward with. So, empathetic pedagogy, according to Bealock and Waddington, is the belief that in order to see compassion through a student lens, instructors must also make space for empathy, in which care and compassion are not separate from being professional. And how does this help? Well, students benefit from having this idea of there being a difference view where they're seen not just as a weakness, but strengths as well. In a study, the difference view was actually associated with expressions of greater career ambitions, greater academic self-esteem, and markers of continued success in academia that carries well into their lives post-graduation. Clearly something we all are passionate about and want. Often neurodiversity directly contributes to several strengths, which can include creativity, such as social justice, hyperfocus, innovation, ways to make macro and micro connections visible that perhaps a neurotypical may not. And it involves also specialist thinking skills and so much further past that. And as librarians, not all of us are able to enter the classroom knowing those accommodation statuses, particularly because students aren't necessarily telling us those. And we may not know that neurodiversity status of our learners. And so while that's a poor argument for designing learning experiences for all, we still want to say that we're ensuring we perceive our learners for their strengths, and that is beneficial no matter who those learners are. So, in practice, we start with the environment. We verbally encourage our students to STEM, just like we did for you. I have my friendly little octopus. He's keeping me company over here as I do so. And for me, that also includes knitting. I'm wearing one of my sweaters. I definitely knit it during meetings because that was the way I stayed focused. And I have a sock yonder waiting for me for the next meeting that I can't keep my brain in. It can help someone with ADHD like me stay focused on things. We normalize stretching mid-session. We encourage that. You seen Amanda do a stretch on camera, and we gave space for everyone to do so. Or for me, to hydrate. It can help you refocus and reground yourself in your body. We also encourage to consider the actual physical space. We don't actually always have control over it, but sometimes maybe we can adjust that lighting in the classroom to make it a little less bright, or use dark mode when possible. There was an instance where Amanda and I were presenting, and we were sharing a tool, and we're like, oh yeah, we're in dark mode actually. It starts off in not dark mode, and we switched the screen, and it was a classroom of about 60 people, and they all groaned when we turned off dark mode because it was so vibrantly bright when presented. And so it shows that a large group of people, no matter where they stand on their brain, actually probably would enjoy having something that was a little less intense. And we also encourage to scaffold time in during lessons for both easy and complex questions. Sometimes it takes a lot of thinking to get up with those good questions. One-shots, workshops, and more. Make note-taking accessible through guided notes that are shared before a session. You can share those out with your instructor. You can just bring them to the start of class, be it digital or otherwise. This can help an anxious student set expectations for an unknown setting, particularly when you are just coming in for a one-shot. They don't know who you are. They just know you're a librarian. This can help ease some of that. It can help a dyslexic student not worry about spelling a complicated database so they can get back to it, or the URLs of things in order to get back to the library webpage. And specifically, we want to normalize that learning is hard and that frustration is supposed to be part of it. It can be done through sharing of personal experiences, that even this person that's up in front of them that feels like an expert had challenging moments while learning, and that it's normal. It does a disservice to students to imply that every part of their education is easy, even if parts of it came to them very easy before this moment. Oops, I think I bounced a little too far. And we're good. Learner-centered check-ins, like we did this morning. How many hours have we been here, guys? Time has no meaning. At the start of this presentation, we did that check-in. How are you guys feeling about spring? And we use technology to allow it to be anonymous. Again, Poll Anywhere, Mentimeter, they allow students to engage and not feel stressed out about being perceived while doing so. And we also suggest maybe using an indicator where students can share how they're feeling about talking in class, maybe name tags, flags, or desk magnets. Depending on how embedded you are in a classroom, you can find a way to not call on people who don't want to be called on yet, but still be able to participate in these alternative sort of means. And for workshops and more, we want to talk about intentionally grounding learners when a class period is dealing with mentally challenging course content. There's a lot of that going on in the world right now. And sometimes I think maybe we need our own reminders. Before and after your doom scrolling, maybe open that up with a lo-fi setting, or maybe close that with that sort of guided meditation that brings you back into a space that is more regulated with some breathing exercises. You can squeeze this into a one-shot really quickly if you set the tone with lo-fi playing as learners enter the classroom before asking that temperature check, and then giving everyone a moment to and follow that breathing before they leave the classroom. If you're talking about things like, I don't know, facts, which for some reason is challenging currently. And you can also close a course with a task that allows them to re-entry, which is what I've been talking about. Leaving behind not the learning, but those highly charged emotions that might have been attached to them using these same techniques. Which brings us to Amanda.
Yay, it's me again, Amanda. We're going to bring it all together. Next slide, please. Next slide again, please. So quickly, I just wanted to cover sort of like to encapsulate all of the information that we threw at you, some best practices. Han and I cannot stand by the first bullet enough. Scaffold your content. It is best practices across multiple pedagogies. It is so helpful for everybody. And then encouraging students to exist as they need to focus. And you can do that by having them talk to each other about what they need in the classroom setting or in your one-shot setting. Include clear and consistent communication, normalize difference, which is why I have showed off my Nido cube a couple times. It's why I got up and stretched, is to show that I'm doing it so you can feel free to do it too. Try to control your environment as much as you can. And that can be hard in institutions where you can't actually control the lighting, but you can try your best to control the lighting or the noise. And also assume no malice. Students aren't trying to be difficult. They may not even know that they have a difference. And then whenever possible, provide choices. Next up is the actual activity. So we put together a Padlet, and you can find that link in our link tree. I was like, what is that called? And you can also use the QR code here to get to it. And all we're asking is that you take a moment inside that Padlet and reflect on a couple of ways in which you might be able to incorporate this into your own practices, either in professional development, workshops, one-shot, online or hybrid courses, in-person courses. And we're not going to watch you fill out the Padlet, but it will be there as a resource so that you can all learn from each other. And then we're going to move on in the spirit of time to learning technologies, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. And it starts with my absolute favorite tool to talk about. So Goblin.tools is a collection of small, simple, single task tools that are mostly designed to help neurodivergent people with tasks that they find overwhelmingly difficult. So this gets at executive function. Most use AI tools sort of on the back end to achieve their goals. And this currently uses OpenAI's models. And their goal is, as AI continues developing, that they're going to move to an open source alternative away from OpenAI. Goblin Tools is fantastic. The one way that I can think about in which it would be really helpful in library sessions is with the magic to do task, where this can help them brainstorm. So like say they need to write a research paper on a topic, but they don't know how to break it down. They can put the task in, set how many chili peppers for how spicy they're feeling, or how much scaffolding they would like in that task. And then it will break them down into a very manageable list that they can do. And then they can also break each of those pieces down into more discrete tasks if they need to. It is one of my favorite tools for this kind of work. My second favorite tool is Finch, and that's my little Finch waving at you. It's a self-care pet app that helps you feel prepared and positive one day at a time. It lets you set personalized daily tasks, and you check them off. You gain energy to send your Finch on adventures and reduce the time that they're away. I use this from like, I need to do laundry today. I put that in there as a thing. Or say I have like 5 work tests I need to get done. Those can also go in there. And this has made a big difference in I use the free version for the record of Finch. And this has made a big difference for me in getting tasks done. Next slide, please. Hannah, talk about your forest app.
I have highly distractive human nature, and so I utilize the Forest app on both my browsers as well as my phone. I tell it what websites I'm allowed to touch. I tell it what apps I'm allowed to touch. And then I start growing a tree, and I tell it how long I want to grow my tree for. And this is how many trees I've grown since the beginning of the year, and I didn't realize I've grown 99 of them, and I have, because it allows me to not get distracted by any notifications for the chunk of time that I want, and allows me to choose who can break through those notifications if you're worried about emergency texts or that sort of thing. It's a free app. Everything that exists right now, it sounds like, has add-ons that you can pay for. I've never paid for any, and I have no regrets. It does exactly what I need in this. And if you want, you can share this with groups of people as well and be like, let's grow a tree together. But as you see, it's not just trees. I have a bunch of cute little mushrooms there. I have cosmos. I've grown so many orange trees, it's not even funny, because that was the vibe during the winter. And so I adore this one for those purposes. And if you navigate away, it will kill your tree. So it's a really good incentive to just keep on struggling through the next 5 minutes of your 25-minute timer.
That doesn't look like it's actually playing. So I'm going to talk about it while Hannah figures it out. This is the ADHD Focus Music Lo-Fi. This channel on YouTube has a whole series of these videos. And the music on this channel is designed specifically to help individuals with ADHD improve their concentration and focus. And so there we go. Now you can hear a snippet. Thank you, Hannah. Do you want to reshare the slides? So their music often includes soothing melodies and calming rhythms that help relax the mind and improve focus. It can be used as background noise while studying, working, or engaging in other tasks that require concentration. And studies have shown that music has a positive impact on the brain and can help improve focus, concentration, and overall cognitive function. Much of this slide deck and lots of Hannah and my writing projects are written and conceived and brainstormed and made with this on in the background. We call it magic music. Next slide, please. So this one is a paid option, and it is called Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. And it is a gamified focus tool that's set to a soothing lo-fi soundtrack. You can also navigate to like YouTube and play music off of YouTube through their browser. And so while you set up like what you're trying to do, so it has body doubling because you have a little avatar that you create. It has a Pomodoro timer. It has a task list. It has a habit tracker. And while you're doing those things, you get to discover and collect spirits. You get to customize your virtual space. They just released a kitchen version, so if they're like kitcheny tasks, you could also do. And this is really lovely. I think it's like $10 for like the base level. And it's so great to put on and have like on another screen so that somebody is there with you. Body doubling. Next slide. So we also have a technology, a Padlet of technology that you can also go explore on your own. This is your homework. Take it away with you. Go try out these things. Feel free to add comments to that. Or if you have something that is your favorite thing, feel free to add that to the Padlet. We welcome ideas, but we also wanted to give you a space where you could explore more of these executive function tools. Okay, Hannah, let me share my screen again, please. And we're going to do our wrap-up activity in Mentimeter. And I am just going to ask you, what's one takeaway from today's workshop? This helps us refine our workshop. It lets us know what resonated with you. And it's a great way of sort of bookending the scaffolding that we did where we started at Mentimeter and now we're ending in Mentimeter. And I will give you a couple seconds. The Apple scale. Scaffolding. 2-minute break to reset and stretch. Scaffolding, scaffolding, scaffolding. Yay! Oh, I'm not alone. You're not alone. There's lots of us. Cool, and the resources that you shared at the end of the presentation was wonderful. The structure was also wonderful. More scaffolding. Just one takeaway, guided notes are great. New online tools to help with focus, adjusting in-person presentation modes, brightness, captioning. Thank you. We feel very vulnerable about sharing our presenter needs, but have always gotten a really good reaction to it. And so we have continued to do it. Sharing tools and examples, break stretching, breaking complicated instructions down, all the things. That's my favorite, I think, besides scaffolding. Lo-fi in the classroom. Guided notes, being intentional about it. These are fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing what resonated with you. Hannah I will pour over these after the session, but now we want to, we'll share our contact information slide, but then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Hannah and Amanda. So we do have a couple of questions. So one question that came up was, is there a way to convey this to admin and longtime faculty to show them I'm not removing rigor?
That's why we started with stats. And that's why we started with stats. Numbers tend to matter. And so figuring out, just talking to your local disability services and being like, hey, do you have some numbers you can share with me? And then moving into backing some of this up, going, I'm not removing rigor. I am making this accessible to everyone. They're all going to end up in the same place that they were going to begin with. And so hopefully that helps with some of your arguments, because I know that's challenging.
I think the other way that I would attack that is to also pull in the principles from sort of like UDL, that you could say, hey, but scaffolding is actually like this proved way that we can benefit our students, all students. And so we would like to do that.
Thank you. So another question that just came in, how do you handle that some tools that benefit some students will be harder for others?
Oh, that's a matter of going, hey, you're gonna find what works for you. And that's kind of our emphasis no matter what. Do you like Goblin tools? Do you need it to break down stuff for you? Awesome. No, you don't need that sort of combination, but maybe you need like a Pomodoro where it times you for 15 minutes to work solidly, gives you a 2-minute break, and then times you another 15 minutes, and that's what works great. And we're very much a find the thing that works for you. Here's some options, because we know there's not one size fits all.
Yeah, and I think providing choices that's like another instance where providing choices is really helpful. Like you don't have to use any of these things, but here are some options of things that could help you.
So we've had a couple questions about how we can apply this in one shot. So One question is suggestions for scaffolding content during a one-shot session. So difficult not to make those sessions overwhelming. And also a related question about should you add like multiple breaks to a one-shot session? So how do you apply this to one-shots?
Yeah, I will take a mini stab at this. It's been a really long time since I've done a one shot, but I do have some ideas. And then I'll turn it over to Hannah. The one thing that I find is really helpful in a one shot scenario is that you sort of scaffold the way I did Mentimeter. So we started off with sort of like an icebreaker question to get people comfy before they use the tool. So if you're using a tool, that's a good way to do that. And then also we do sort of like an exit strategy. So we had you do a takeaway, but if I were running a professional development or a one-shot session, there would be another one where I asked them how they were feeling. And that sort of helps bookend the content. And that's one of the strategies that I've used in one shot before.
And Amanda leans exactly on some of the things that I do because I scaffold the technology in a very easy sort of way, and then we continue using that technology. So while we didn't dig into Padlet, I love using it for those scaffolded bits because I can have an example on the screen. I can have step 1 here, step 2 here, step 3 here, and then they practice each of these steps. Yeah, the first baby step is what you're trying to figure out for your learning outcomes, and sometimes that means pulling back how much you're trying to teach in a class because in one shots, we tend to be trying to plug it all in. We're trying to teach all the things, and it's about actually making those expectations really clear to your instructors that you can't do all of this well in a single 45-minute session or a 20-minute session, that it actually takes this long to do something. And Oliver, one shots when we're talking about them is going as an instructor, oftentimes inviting us into a classroom, going, hey, will you come and talk about information literacy and then teach my students how to search and find the databases and evaluate them and make a citation and also we're giving you 25 minutes to do it or however long that class period is. So it takes you a little more self-examining on what you're trying to do in that chunk of time, and are you doing it well without a good amount of scaffolding packed in there?
Wonderful. I think we might have time for one more question. So someone wrote, I'm so excited about Spirit City. Has anyone had any success getting any of the paid tools provided as accommodations? So any thoughts about that?
I think we're going to open that to the floor because neither Amanda and I don't think have had that experience, but what a wonderful thought.
Yeah, I have considered at Ohio State we have a lifestyle spending account, and I have considered just like putting the cost of that in for it, but like for $10, I would rather have them pay for me to have more yarn than Spirit City. I'm like, I would prefer yarn, please. But I think it's worth a shot.
So I think we are getting to the end. So everyone, please thank Hannah and Amanda for their session today. This was fantastic. Just want to remind everyone that this has been a presentation hosted by the University Library Section Professional Development Committee. We would very much appreciate if you all can fill out the evaluation form. I just put the link to that in the chat again. And then everyone will get a follow-up email that has the recording to this session, the link to Hannah and Amanda's Braintree with all of their resources. Unfortunately, we're not able to provide a copy of the chat to everyone, but you will get the recording and the slides and the resources for everyone. So that should come out in the next couple of days. And again, please fill out the evaluation if you are able to do so. Thank you all so much for being here today. And we hope everyone will have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Amanda.